Today is a big day for the CL500 because we're finally replacing the big stock muffler with a Vance and Hines exhaust, which is inside that big box. But enough of the big. I am big excited for this because, as you guys know, if you saw the first video that I made with this, the exhaust is one of my biggest complaints. So we got the Vance and Hines going on today, which should not only sound way better, but also look a whole lot better and clean things up a bit. I know you guys have been very impatiently waiting for this to go on, but it's been raining for a week. And as Bob Almighty says,
be patient, it takes time.
All right, subscribe if you're new here and we'll jump straight into it and check out the new exhaust. Okay, I kind of lied. Before we look at the Vance and Hines exhaust, let's take a quick closer look at the stock exhaust so I can show all the reasons why I'm not a super big fan of it, looks aside, and hopefully this crow that's been absolutely losing his mind in this tree gives us a moment of silence. Okay, so we've already been over the fact that I don't think it's the sexiest looking thing ever, but I also noticed something super weird that might have to do with what I pointed out in the first video. It is interesting though, because down here you can see the outlet pipe for where the header meets the muffler is way bigger than any of the other 500 motors. All of the other ones, like the Rebel 500, the CB500X, all come out at like that diameter, but this one really beefs up before it comes out, so that's interesting. And I thought that was really weird. I'm like, why do they need more airflow on this one? And since then, I realized something that's a little bit weird and I think answers that question. So if you look at the stock muffler, you're like, wow, that's really wide, but then you come down here and it just bottlenecks so that it can fit around the shock, which is super strange to me. I don't know if inside this muffler, if it's just closed off back there, or if it really does come up through like the wide pipe and then bottlenecks and then comes out wider, but that's just really strange to me. And the Vance and Hines should just be a straight through like step muffler that doesn't just bottleneck down. So hopefully not only should it look way better, but also perform better. So that'll be interesting to see. It's just really weird to me. I've just never seen a muffler bottleneck like that to fit around a shock. Aside from that, you can see all the heat shields wrapped around this thing has to weigh so freaking much. So I'm sure that the Vance and Hines should be a really big weight savings. They don't say how much of a weight savings on the website, but we will test that because I got my little scale over there. But yeah, regardless, it's just absolutely covered in heat shields. So we should see a decent weight savings. It is a little bit weird though, because the Vance and Hines, from what I've seen in pictures, only has a heat shield here to kind of protect the passenger's legs, but it doesn't have a heat shield coming all the way down like this one does. And you can see my shoe's already been rubbing on it right there. So I don't know if it's going to get hot enough to melt my shoe on the Vance and Hines or what, but I guess we'll see. So I haven't taken the exhaust out of the packaging yet to actually look at it, but I gotta say right off the bat, the packaging is super good. You open it up and the top has this box kind of blocking everything off that has the mounting hardware and instructions, I'm sure, but then the exhaust slides out like strapped down to this thing, almost making it look like some sort of friggin' prize that we won or something, like a plaque that you can hang on the wall. Super freaking cool. And I'll let the suspense build before we take that out. Let's check out what's in here. All those noises were so satisfying. It's like box opening ASMR. Okay, so just as expected, it looks like we have all of our mounting hardware and clamps and such here. Oh, that's cool. A welcome to the team thing from Vance and Hines. Nice marketing. Now let's go ahead and get it open. And man, is she looking good. That's obviously not the front facing side. That is the front facing side. Has some condensation or oil on it, but dude, this thing is gonna look so much better. And then it looks like this would be the heat shield that goes on there. Not sure if it goes that direction or this direction, but we'll check out some pictures for that. And then it looks like this bracket and these bolts are what hold the mounting thing onto the back of the muffler. Although I'm realizing, am I missing something? I don't see any screws to hold that on. I guess we'll figure that out. And then what does this thing do? Oh, it probably has like the rubber mount right there, so that probably goes through that. And then the blacked out clamp. So yeah, we're looking good. Oh man, looks like a little teeny tiny scuff right there, but we're not sweating it, you know, nobody's gonna notice that. And besides, you guys know I've been trying to do better with not worrying about the bike being perfect and just using it and abusing it and having fun with it, so whatever. Now let's go ahead and get the stock muffler off. It looks like in order to do that, we just have the bolt clamp right there. I mean, clamp, bolt, you get it. And then it looks like just a bolt right there that we'll have to reach through on this side and get it off with that. I don't know what all that popping was. This one's definitely easier to get to with a wrench than it is that socket. And then it should just yeah. And then I think this little Yep, that comes out of the little mount right there, which would explain what this little insert that came with the kit is for. You just slide that into place where that one came from. Now, I just want y'all to know I was not kidding when I said it's been raining nonstop for a week, and even when it shows 0% chance of rain, it'll start dumping out of nowhere, so hopefully we're in the clear for the rest of the install. Now, I gotta say, I was really hoping when this bike came out that I would be able to do some sort of low mount exhaust, but that's obviously not gonna be possible for two reasons. First reason is that this thing shoots straight up, whereas the other ones come a little bit more straight out. But also you can see that Honda has the exhaust bracket welded to the little like U part of the back of the frame. So if you did a low mount exhaust, this thing would just be ugly and hanging out. So high mount is the only way to go, but I can already tell you we'll probably want that anyway because of that weird fender gap, and that should fill it up very nicely. First things first though, let's weigh that real quick to see what the weight difference is. Okay, just me is 168.6. Damn, I knew I'd been eating some cheeseburgers. I didn't know that much though. And then with the stock exhaust, it's gonna be 183. Quick, do math. Stock muffler is 14.4 pounds and feels every ounce of it. Now let's get the new muffler put together with all the heat shields and stuff and weigh that before we put it on. Okay, so I'm realizing that I am indeed missing the two bolts that hold the heat shield on. Those are listed in the instructions that I found online, but obviously not present here. So we'll start off by just putting the bracket on the back, and then we'll run to the hardware store for bolts. Okay, so it looks like we just take this bracket right here and mount it like that. Obviously the front or like outward facing portion of the muffler is facing the ground right now. This is the back of the muffler. That's the exit, so you want to have it positioned like this, and you take those bolts and you slide this little, I think they call it dog bone something or another, slide that back behind everything. Use the bolts to tighten it down, but you just want both of these to be hand tight, not all the way tight, so that it has some free play as we get everything lined up. And that's it. We should be good to mount it up now. Wait, I almost forgot to check the weight of this one, so I'll just hold the clamp and this and these miscellaneous things I'll put in my pocket, and then we'll snatch it up and see what we're working with. You can tell it feels way lighter. 176.2, bro, what? That means that the Vance and Hines muffler is 6.8 pounds lighter than the stock muffler, which is pretty substantial. And all that tells me is that on July 4th, which is today, it means I can eat all the burgers that I want, because all the weight savings comes from the muffler. All right, let's get it thrown on. Enough bad jokes. All right, so we'll set up the clamp down like that. I like to kind of hang it right there so that it doesn't scratch this as you're sliding it on. And then very carefully we will slide it down into place, making sure not to hit anything else or scratch it on anything. And then right here's where it mounts up at the rear. You can see that that's why you want a little bit of play in this bracket right here, so you can move around and you can get the hole lined up nice and good. Then we'll take the bolt and washer that we took off of the back side of the stock muffler, and we'll stick that right through here once we got it lined up. Then take the washer and nut that Vance and Hines provided and throw those on the back. And once again, we just want that hand tight, not all the way tightened down. And actually, I don't know how well y'all can see it, but I'm realizing that that bolt barely sticks out past the end of that nut. So I looked up the instructions, and apparently they don't call for the washer on the front. So we'll take that one off to give some more room to thread down and then start tightening things down. After a brief intermission, we got the clamp tightened down. Vance and Hines calls for 17 foot-pounds of torque. And I say a brief intermission because we had to go buy a deep socket 10mm. There's just no way that a regular 10mm socket was gonna work because of all that ridiculous extra thread sticking out. So of course I couldn't find my 10mm as always, at least the deep socket one, so we had to go buy one, but it works out because we ended up getting some bolts for the heat shield while we were out. With that said, if this channel has ever helped you in any way, shape, or form, if you like me even a little bit, please consider subscribing to my Patreon, which I will link below, patreon.com/LifeOfBurch. You can pledge your monthly amount and get behind the scenes access, early access, all that kind of good stuff. This broke boy needs a garage, but I can't afford it if I'm being honest, and I'm kind of sick of making you guys wait on install videos because of weather and losing tools and whatever. We need a Life of Birch garage, so please consider helping out on Patreon. But anyway, the clamp is good. Now I'll use a 1/2 inch for these two bolts here, and then 12 mils to tighten these down. Throw the heat shield on and do the first startup. Bro, there is zero shot that I just got done talking about the rain and now it's raining. Are you kidding me? At least it'll cool me off. Is this plastic? As I drop it, the fender's plastic. I thought it was metal this whole time. This is gonna be so much easier to get rid of this. Get some of this oil off and then wipe it. Oh, there's some scuffs here too, dude. Oh, doesn't matter. Remember, we're trying to focus on things not being perfect. Anyway, we're wiping all this oil off, and then we'll wipe the whole thing down with rubbing alcohol to make sure all the fingerprints and oil are off so that none of it burns on when we start it up. And the 1/2-inch screws, which are the shortest things they had at the hardware store, are too long to hold the heat shield on. So we're just gonna test it without the heat shield, and I'll just have Vance and Hines send me the correct bolts because I'm not going back, and they're closed because it's 4th of July. And she is done, or at least as done as she's gonna be until we get the proper bolts for that heat shield. But of course the heat shield doesn't affect the sound or performance of it, so we'll just do our best to not get burnt on the test ride. But I gotta say, this thing is looking so much better than that stock briefcase. It is insane how much better this thing looks. I love how much it opens up the back end and shows off the wheel, and you can see that this pipe right here they have going perfectly in line with that part of the frame, looking so good. And then of course you can also see that it sticks out from the bike a little bit further than the stock exhaust so that you don't have it bottlenecking just to fit around the shock, so that's awesome. You just have the mid pipe and then a step up and then a step up to the final 4-inch tip, looking oh so sexy. I am so stoked on how this looks, guys. Oh my gosh. Now there are a few bad sides to it. As you know, I'm super nitpicky, so we'll just get to that real quick. I really wish that the nameplate was a little bit lower so that as you're looking at it from the side of the bike, it's like right in the middle of the exhaust instead of up higher. And then also the finish looks pretty good, but of course it has like the little scuff right there and the little scuff right there, which most people wouldn't notice or care about, but I gotta point it out, of course. And then of course you guys already know it didn't come with the bolt, so that's a major buzzkill. But other than that, this thing looks really good, so much better than stock. And now all that's left is to start it up and see how she sounds. All right, so now the moment of truth. I am super excited to see how this sounds. I have not even watched the teaser that Vance and Hines put out to see how it sounds, and I've never heard any of the other Vance and Hines systems on the Rebel 500. But you guys know, if you've seen my other videos, any of the Vance and Hines stuff for the Rebel 1100, I've said I feel like that's how it should have come from the factory because it just sounds so good, so refined, but not super loud. I feel like Vance and Hines has always been one of the quieter exhausts for the Rebel series, so I'm thinking that this will be the same, and I'm actually hoping that it's not too quiet for my taste, but enough talking, let's find out. That sounds so good.
It sounds wild.
Nina crawls from the depths back there. That sounds wild.
I'm literally sitting out back and I'm like, ooh, that's gotta be the new exhaust.
Yeah.
I'll see.
Start it up. Give it more juice than that. Okay, we're in the break-in period.
That's fun though.
Isn't that so sick?
Very cool.
We got Nina seal of, oh, terrible angle. We got Nina seal of approval, and now it's time for some flybys. In a series of events off camera, I was actually able to get the heat shield mounted by just throwing a couple of washers behind it, so everything's nice and secure there, because it's a heat index of almost 100 degrees today, and as much as I'd love to put on riding gear, I'm literally so sweaty after that install, there's no way that I could even slide my shorts off and slide into riding pants if I wanted to. So I found a way to get that put on just to be safe so that I don't burn myself, but I guess this will be the real test. But I will say it does seem like this heat shield is mainly just for the passenger's legs, because my leg doesn't come anywhere near it. But like I've said before, I'm interested to see how this does with no heat shield at the bottom, because on the stock one, my shoe was hitting the heat shield and kind of rubbing on it, so I really hope my shoe doesn't melt on the mid pipe, or whatever you would call it. Anyway, let's go do some flybys, and we will start off with some flybys with the stock exhaust, and then we'll hear how it compares. Oh my gosh, dude. I really hope that video shows and does justice to just how good this sounds. It's really good. And it's definitely louder than I was expecting it to be. Like I was saying, lots of the Vance and Hines I've heard previously have been almost too quiet for my taste, and I was hoping that wasn't the case here, and it is not. I feel like the volume's perfect. It's nice and refined, but still has some like crackles to it. It gets a little bit high-pitched in higher revs, but it's little 500s. Of course, that's going to happen. One thing that I noticed is there's something like coming out here, though. Like it almost looks like it's like, you know, when you put exhaust gasket maker on something and you don't let it sit enough and then it comes out, but I didn't put any gasket maker on this. So I don't know if that's like some of whatever oil was on the muffler or like what is going on there, but I'm going to try and clean that off. And if it doesn't come off, then that sucks. You can definitely feel more heat coming off of this than you can with the stock exhaust. That's kind of like a duh thing though, because this only has a heat shield here, whereas the stock one has a heat shield down the entire thing. But I'm in friggin' board shorts pretty much, and it's not like ridiculously hot for me by any means. So far so good with the shoe hitting that. I don't want to jinx it though. I am pleasantly surprised by this. I love it. Nina loves it. You guys are gonna love it. Check out the link below if you want to buy one for yourselves. Was that a hey I like your bike or what? Oh, I forgot to mention also, it does feel like it gives a little bit more power. It's just the butt dyno. I don't know like how much power it's actually claimed to give, but it really feels like this thing is uncorked. So could just be my head playing games with me. You know, there's always the debate of how much just a muffler is going to add as far as power goes, but I think personally it adds a bit of power because the butt dyno is telling me it does. But anyway, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Shout out to the Patreon members for making all this possible, and of course make sure to check out the link in the description below if you want to join the Patreon as well. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on all the cool I'm gonna do to this. Love you guys. Peace.
Be patient, it took time, but now I'm here, motherfucker, everything is mine. Imagine if I would've quit, like some of you, and now it really ain't no fun, cause I'm in front of you.